Ever seen a CEO lose sleep over a $500 million problem, then get schooled by someone nobody in the building even noticed? Yeah, that happened. And I'm telling you now, you wouldn't believe how it all went down unless you lived through it like I did. I still remember that night. The city outside was a black ocean, office towers gleaming like lighthouses, but up on the top floor, Carter Tech boardroom looked more like a war room than a sanctuary. Ethan Carter, the big boss himself, stalked from window to window, hair wild, tie loose, eyes so tired you could see the red veins from across the room. He was staring down the barrel of disaster. The Genesis project, his legacy, bleeding cash and reputation with every minute that critical bug went unsolved. You gotta understand, this wasn't some run-of-the-mill glitch. It was a technical crisis, the sort that brings in experts from Silicon Valley, pays them a king's ransom just for a shrug and a sorry. Board members breathing down his neck, press hounding his every step. Even a barista at the lobby cafe started giving him pity glances. Then, out of nowhere, as he reached for yet another cup of cold coffee, there was this faint clacking Simeon typing in his private office. Nobody should have been in there at that hour. He marched down the hallway, heartbeat thumping, throws open the door, and who does he see? Not his chief engineer, not the midnight security guy, but Hannah Brooks, the newest janitor, a young black woman with nerves shot and hands frozen above his keyboard. The shock on Ethan's face was priceless. "What are you doing on my computer?" he barked, voice like ice. Hannah went pale, eyes wide, clearly terrified, but tried to explain she was just helping, spotted a problem, thought she could fix it. Ethan scoffed, almost laughed in her face. Help? With this? But then, when he glanced at the code, his whole expression changed. He leaned in, real close, squinting. The bug that had cost his company millions? Patched. Neat as you please, with logic so tight, even his six-figure engineers would have killed for it. For a long moment, he just stood there, unable to process it. Then he turned on Hannah, all suspicion and wounded pride, demanding to know who she really was. And that's when she told him quiet, like she was confessing a sin that she'd studied at MIT, top of her class, but never graduated because her mom got sick and she had to drop everything to support the family. You could almost see the air change in the room. Ethan went from anger to shame in a heartbeat, seeing for the first time the person standing right in front of him, not just a job title. But old habits die hard. Instead of thanking her, he told her she shouldn't have been there. He'd have someone review everything she did, then dismissed her with a cold. "You can go." You know that feeling when you realize you've messed up, but your pride won't let you fix it right away? That was Ethan staring at the screen after Hannah left, fighting with himself, trying to find a flaw in her code, but it was perfect. He pulled up her personnel file, read about her time at MIT, saw the note, withdrew for family reasons, and suddenly all those months of struggle made sense. The next morning, he couldn't find her anywhere, just an empty janitor's closet and a pile of questions. And here's where it gets real. As top engineer, Mike Harris, comes swaggering in, throwing shade about system hiccups and acting like he owns the place. Mike was the type who'd never even look Hannah's way, convinced real talent came with a pedigree and a suit. Ethan realized right then it wasn't just technical arrogance that had stalled Genesis, it was human arrogance, the kind that shuts out anyone who doesn't fit the mold. From that moment, Ethan vowed not to let pride or prejudice blind him again. But the story didn't end there. Ethan needed proof, had to know Hannah's fix wasn't a fluke. So he started testing her in secret, sneaking small bugs into the system each night. And every morning, like clockwork, he'd find them fixed, a tiny note left behind. Error fixed. Sorry if I overstepped. Then, one night, he left a near-impossible bug buried deep, something even his best guys would need days to crack. Next morning fixed. And that's when Ethan knew he'd found not just an unsung hero, but someone who'd been overlooked her whole life for all the wrong reasons. Mike, of course, caught on. He stormed into Ethan's office, angry, calling Hannah dangerous and demanding she be fired for touching the servers. Ethan shut him down hard, telling him real engineering wasn't about titles, it was about talent. Mike left fuming, but the whole company could feel the shift lines being drawn, old prejudices facing something they couldn't deny. The tension finally boiled over in a board meeting. Ethan stood up in front of the directors and confessed the truth. Genesis had been saved not by the A-team, not by him, but by Hannah Brooks, the janitor. The reaction? Pure chaos. Some laughed. Some got angry. Robert Spencer, the oldest board member, flat out refused to believe it. So Ethan did the only thing he could, brought Hannah in and let her speak for herself. You could feel the anxiety in her voice at first, the ghosts of every time she'd been told to stay in her lane. But as she walked the board through her logic, the room went silent. Mike's smirk faded. Robert looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. And when she finished, even the skeptics couldn't argue. The room erupted into applause. Hannah, the invisible janitor, became the hero who'd rescued a $500 million company. Afterward, Ethan offered her a full-time engineering role. She hesitated, afraid the prejudice and gossip would only get worse, that she'd never be seen as more than the help. But Ethan refused to take no for an answer. He saw how much her mother's illness still weighed on her, so he covered all the medical bills anonymously so Hannah could focus on her future. And yes, before you ask, Hannah thrived. She took the job, proved herself on every project, became a name in the industry, invited to speak at tech summits and business schools, even won Young Innovator of the Year. And right there, in front of the world, Ethan stepped on stage, confessed he loved her, and asked her to marry him. She said yes, and not a dry eye in the house. Funny thing is, even Mike Harris, sulking in the back, learned something. Watching Hannah succeed forced him to face the smallness of his own pride, and you could see him change slowly, grudgingly, but it happened. So, tell Maid, you think real value is about degrees and resumes, or about grit, heart, and what someone does when nobody's watching? Would you have trusted Hannah, or shut her out like Mike? Share your thoughts below, because in the end, what we choose to see in each other is what changes the world for real. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and drop your take. Does talent always rise? Or does it need someone willing to fight for it? Let's talk about it.